Hey, hello everyone. You're listening to Castbitten, a Dungeon Synth podcast, and I'm the host, Trev. Today we've got Chris from Grimfather on the horn. Grimfather is a dark fantasy dungeon synth project from the Pacific Northwest. You just heard an upcoming unreleased track, and that's titled Sword of Actuation. It's going to be part of the split that Chris is working on with Sam from ORCUS, which something maybe the fans are a little familiar with because we just talked about that on the last episode. But yeah, it's a really cool, really strong song with a ton of atmosphere and a lot of powerful dynamic changes, and I really like it. I'm really into it. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Chris. I'm happy to have you.
Hey, thanks so much, Trev. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in with the split and the song first.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about it. For anyone that didn't grab the last episode, so you and ORCUS, I think you were talking about Berserk is what it's called, right? I haven't read it yet.
Oh yeah.
I've heard about it a lot.
Yeah. So Berserk is it's a manga by Kentaro Miura, and it's been ongoing for I think it's 35 years now. But he recently passed. He recently passed away this year, and it was a big loss to.
Oh no!
To us fans, it's will we see the end of it? Will his assistants carry it on? That kind of thing. But yeah, it's a dark fantasy manga, and once Sam found out that I was a fan of it, he was like, "Oh, we got to do a Berserk split," and I was down. I was down for it basically right away.
Yeah. Well, the tracks, like I said, it's really strong. A lot of atmosphere.
Yeah.
A lot of what feels like to me very careful. Work with how things change dynamically to it. Definitely and Sam and I mentioned this, but kind of coming in with a heavier kit sound toward the end to really fill things out.
Yeah.
It's really nice, super tasteful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I feel like I do a kind of crescendo often in the songs I do, and it's kind of from a history of listening to a lot of post-rock and stuff, so I think it's something I kind of gravitate towards is kind of, quiet to some sort of build to some sort of climax, generally implementing a lot of rock percussion and things like that. So that's really what I kind of go for with a lot of my tracks.
I get that. I mean, post-rock's awesome. I think a lot of the properties of it can fit into other genres really well. It's Definitely. Just a nice structure, it's good form in a song to go through those big changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One thing, it's a little abstract that kind of comes to mind. So with any sort of, I don't know, one type of media influencing your music, it's a little interesting how people specifically allow that influence to happen, but especially with a long running dark manga that you mentioned. How do you translate what you're reading there into music? How does that happen?
Yeah, that was interesting. And I did have a slight bit of hesitancy before fully being on board with the split, because I was like, Grimfather, I kind of have this kind of world lore and things I've been doing with Grimfather. And I'm like, so if I step outside those bounds into an existing property, is that kind of weird? Am I gonna meet that? Is there going to be some sort of clashing of ideologies or something between the two works? But I don't know. I kind of just approached it as how Berserk kind of makes me feel when I'm reading it. And just kind of, I'm just putting it through the prism of myself, and, my musical influence. Sorry, I thought I kind of lost my train of thought there.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's abstract. It's difficult to voice.
Right, yeah. And one song on the track is a direct reference to a song from the anime, because there was also a 90s anime. So one of the tracks on there, I kind of paid homage to that. I kind of thought of it as a sort of, if the show had not stopped, if it had continued going on, maybe this song would have come back as a reprisal, that sort of thing. Yeah. So besides that, I kind of approached it the way I approach everything I do, which is just sitting down in front of my keyboard and trying to picture either a scene or an emotion or an environment from the manga, and kind of just, you know, to the best of my abilities, making that match what it appears to be in my head, you know?
Yeah. And that's interesting to me, and that's come up with other guests before. So you're the type of musician, you get the creative juices flowing first before writing music, and then you try to realize that through music you have some sort of image or sound in your head. That seems to be the case.
Well, with Berserk, with this split specifically, definitely,
Okay, I
just because it
see.
was an
Yeah.
existing thing. With the stuff I'm doing, with, you know, where I'm manufacturing the world in addition to the sounds, um, it can manifest both ways. A lot of times, it's a
Okay.
lot of experimentation when I'm sitting at the keyboard, and I'm basically experimenting until I discover what I'm looking for, basically. And
I see.
I have a lifetime of music. I've been into music for so long, so a lot of those things at this point feel like they come naturally to me. But you know, it's still aspects of experimentation.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah,
So you talk about with the other Grimfather stuff how you're there's a little bit of world building there, and that's something that I kind of want to pry into.
yeah,
So I know that writing seems to have a major role in your music, and it seems like that's becoming true to an increasing extent throughout your releases. I know your first one had a blurb, and then maybe there were 3 or 4 parts.
yeah,
The second album, and then on your most recent release, Endless, every song has a little write up, kind of panning out to tell this
yeah,
whole story.
yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Thank you.
What's
Yeah,
Yeah, what's going on there? Can you talk about the world you're building and how you do it? Well,
absolutely.
anything, whatever you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with my first album, I definitely kind of see it in retrospect as me getting my sea legs basically within the scene.
Yeah.
Because when I found out about Dungeon Synth, I was so excited about the prospect of it that I was basically just pulling from everything I was listening to and influenced by. So I think in my first album, Procession, that's more apparent. I think when I did Observer, it kind of it hit its stride, and the narrative aspect I explored more in that because I think I just felt more comfortable in what I was doing basically.
Yeah.
So Procession was kind of this like vague kind of outline, kind of, you know, this is a fantasy world, like what, you know, kind of tropey. But as it developed, I kind of brought in more aspects of dark fantasy and weird fiction and horror into the mix, and I just kind of felt more comfortable in my writing. And I've always kind of toyed around with the idea of writing or writing short stories or things like that. But this has been a really cool way to realize that.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, the world itself, it's, you know, it's very grim. It's very kind of grim dark. I kind of have this in-head canon that I'm working from, and I'm kind of just kind of dishing it out piecemeal. Um, so yeah, I don't know how in depth you want to go with all that lore and stuff, but it's something that kind of
You
exists
got
in my
plenty of
head.
time. You can go in depth. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like I kind of love this idea within dark fantasy of these the societies built upon societies built upon societies, this kind of
Yeah.
things being so technologically advanced that you get far enough in the future that they're antiquated almost. So
Yeah.
or that society collapses in such a way that we have to revert to some sort of past, more even medieval kind of societal structure. And so that's kind of where the world in my mind takes place. Is it's like the humanity has destroyed itself to the point that our technologies are ancient. Like magic has come back into the world. Like it's not necessarily new ground that's been tread, but it's kind of my way of exploring these weird fantasy horror
Yeah.
apocalyptic ideas. And so the Grimfather is a character within the world. He's kind of the main antagonist, and I'm kind of thinking with future projects of maybe introducing the antagonist more, or the protagonist more, I should say. And yeah, I'm kind of it's something I let kind of happen organically. I'm not really thinking too much about the story unless I'm writing new music. Um, so it happens it happens very organically when I'm doing it. I'm not always
Yeah.
conscious of exactly what I want the story to be when I'm writing a track. A lot of times it'll be like, I have these tracks. I love the way the music sounds. It's music first, you know, but then I'm kind of ruminating on it afterwards as I'm like listening and re-listening and trying to, you know, nail it down. And, the story oftentimes takes shape in my head when I'm doing that. But sometimes I have an idea beforehand and then I'm writing a track
Right.
for that specifically. Yeah, it can go either way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty relatable to me, and I don't always hear it that way with more often than not music first,
Yeah,
but it's totally how I go. I'll maybe have a concept of the themes that I want to cover,
right.
but as far as the specifics, like I'm more likely to come up with the music first and then ruminate on that and think, hey, how would this play into what I'm creating?
Right.
It's
Yeah,
interesting.
and that's how I've always kind of thought about music, even before getting into Dungeon Synth. Like it was like song titles came last, lyrics came last.
Right,
It was always what
right.
the instrumental aspect of it was and the mood and the atmosphere of it was before anything else.
For a little context, can you dive into your previous musical background, some of the other stuff that you've done?
Sure. Yeah. Nothing huge. Last year, actually, right before I started getting into the Dungeon Synth stuff, I kind of messed around with a doomy metal kind of 3-song project called Teenage Graveyard. I think it's on
Oh,
Bandcamp.
nice.
Um, Besides that, I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was like 16. Drums was like my
Yeah.
first love. My parents got me piano lessons when I was super young. At the time, I didn't appreciate that, so I wanted to opt out of that pretty quick. But
Yeah.
yeah, really, drumming is my first passion, and I feel like that's one of the things that comes through in Grimfather a lot. In that, I often kind of lean towards percussion heavy aspects of my songs, but yeah, I mean, I've been doing
I
it
mean, that's
forever, and it's run in my family
yeah.
too. But sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's just a very powerful background to have. I
You're right.
feel like maybe I'm biased because the rhythm and percussion came later for me, but I
Right.
feel like as far as having one quality to be like a solid foundation, it's so nice to make music when the rhythm is really natural and you can play around with melody and timbre and things like that.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
I feel like there's more wiggle room within those qualities, whereas to come from like a strictly guitar or keyboard background, it's hard to write songs without an understanding of rhythm and drums and how that shapes a song and structures it.
Yeah, and that is even comes into the way I would write sometimes when I would play guitar because it'd be like maybe I'd come up with a riff, but then I'd like jump on Logic and then throw on like an auto drum just so I would have like a drum, like a
Oh yeah.
percussive thing to like be playing over because I don't know, for me, it helps me really it helps me solidify, but it also helps me find out where I'm going to move forward with a track a lot of times as well. To have that kind of basis in the drums and everything.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Do you do your drums live for the Grimfather thing? I know in your notes you say like written and performed by you. I don't know what all goes into that in your
Yeah.
head.
So specifically on Endless, all the drums were performed live on my keyboard. So
Okay, a little bit of both. Yeah.
yeah, I don't do any programming for the drum. I did actually on Endless. I didn't do programming on anything. It was all performed either in
Interesting.
multiple takes or yeah. But yeah, the drums, I am so familiar with the kits basically on Logic that I basically just play them by hand, which I know is uncommon from listening to your show. A lot of people are programming beats and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of programming.
Um,
And that makes me think, is that just what comes most naturally to you, or is that a bit of a statement or a self-challenge when you do it without like hand programming MIDI?
I don't consider it a challenge because I really like doing it. It's really fun because I can't where I live right now. I don't have space for a drum set, and that would be a pricey investment for me,
Totally
so I don't have one. But I mean, if I had one, I would be just fucking slamming on that thing probably 24 hours a
Yeah.
day. But yeah, since I don't, I can just use my keyboard, and it can basically be that for me. So I get a lot of joy out of doing that live. So yeah, that's basically the reason. It's not really a
Okay.
challenge, but
No statement, just preference. You like it?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that I imagine that's gonna maybe just in subtle ways, but set it apart from other sounds. Like you said, we've discussed a ton on the podcast in the past. A lot of people are just doing it differently, and there can be a bit of a different feel there between playing it out live. You know, regardless if it's on keys, it's still
Yeah.
easier to sit in the groove. It's easier to like play a little bit outside of the metronome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
makes
I
it
think
unique.
it gives it a certain quality where I don't. I also try not to quantify the or quantilize. I'm actually forgetting the term right now. Quantalization, is that what it is within the
Oh yeah,
DAW?
quantize.
Yeah, where it it adjusts the
Oh
note
yeah,
so
I'm
that it falls
guilty. I
directly.
quantize constantly.
Yeah, if it's really egregious, I'll fix it. But for the most part, I
Yeah,
try to keep the performance as accurate as possible to what I actually played. And
nice.
sometimes there's a little, maybe this note is just a smidge off beat, but I think it kind of is part of the reason I love the fact that people can also program in Dungeon Synth, because I love that some of the guests on the show are like, oh, I didn't have a history of music. I wasn't playing music before a year ago, but now I
Yeah.
can program these beats. And like, that's really like punk rock to me in a lot of ways, because it's like I can do this too,
Yeah, it's
and I
almost
hear
like
these
the
songs.
modern version of like the Tascam tape recorder and
Right.
just like guitar in your bedroom. It's just making do with the tools you have with
It,
no prior background.
yeah, exactly. But I love that because it can inspire anybody who maybe is like, I can't get into music. This is beyond me. But then,
That's funny. That is punk rock. You're
yeah, I
right.
mean,
I never would have thought of it like that.
it's like if you watch anybody talk about seeing like the Ramones or something, and they're playing
Yeah.
three chords and they're playing drums and they're playing so fast, and it's like, oh shit, I can do that. It doesn't. It's funny because it can. Yeah, I love that idea that it can inspire somebody who wouldn't think to do music but can get into it and might even become a better musician than the Ramones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So so you do the drums and everything on keys. Are all of the sounds on the album from MIDI, or do you have any like analog keyboards or anything like that in the mix?
No, I don't have any analog. I actually use all existing VSTs within Logic Pro.
Oh, really?
It's kind of been kind of part of the thesis of the project for me has been to push that to the limits as much as I can, because I mean, even to the limits is being generous, because Logic has so many VSTs and instruments within it. Like I could make like a million sounds with just Logic X, but
Yeah.
it just using this limited tool set to kind of capture what I'm trying to capture, basically. So yeah, I haven't gotten into the analog. I would like to. It is interesting to me. It's just a matter of the investment into it, and just doing the research as to what I would really need.
Right. Yeah. It can be hard to justify. I'm all MIDI, and especially as someone without a huge synthesis background, it feels like there's just so many sounds that I can get through VSTs that
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to justify buying like a chord or something.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, there's definitely qualities to the tone and the sound of those things that is unique to them. But for my purposes, I don't need to make the investment right now.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. So I know you mentioned coming from your earliest album Procession to this most recent album Endless that you got a little more, or maybe a lot more conceptually focused.
Yeah.
Can you talk about maybe like technically and musically how you've improved and changed along the way there?
Um, sure.
if there's any
How I've
improvement to be
improved.
found, maybe
I mean,
you were
yeah, I
nailing it
feel
since
like
day one.
yeah, no, no. That's not, definitely not trying to say that. But it's I think as far as just the production side of it, I feel more comfortable now than I did when I was first starting.
Right.
As far as mastering and things like that, I feel more comfortable. Not entirely. I think there's still improvements to be made, but I'm generally pretty happy. I was using this service called Cloud Bounce for
Yeah, I
procession.
have that in my notes.
Yeah, it is like an auto mastering, and I was so baffled by mastering that I don't even know exactly what that means. I don't know if it's just like it's just dropping or raising EQs, or if it's just compressing and
Yeah.
boosting volume. Like I'm not entirely sure what that process is for Cloud Bounce. But with Endless, that was my first time entirely doing the mastering myself.
Wow.
And I was really happy with the way it came out. So I think I've definitely improved in that aspect. And I guess in just, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say because, you know, you always love your newest stuff best, right?
Right.
Um,
You've listened to it the least, and
yeah,
it's when
exactly.
you was at your peak.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe I don't know. I feel like I kind of have to step outside myself a little bit to really analyze that. I guess I really
Interesting.
haven't.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of focus in on that mastering because that's an absolute mystery to many musicians. It's
Yeah.
something the last 3 or 4 weeks I've been just personally really grinding, trying to learn about mastering and trying to like buy and collect some like plugins and tools for
Hmm.
that. So what's your process now for Endless, or maybe even for the more recent stuff on the split if it's changed?
It hasn't changed.
Can you talk about your change? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Go
so
for it.
it's I've kept it relatively the same between Endless and the Berserk split, which I think we're calling Interstice is going to be the name of
Ooh,
that
okay.
split.
Good to hear.
Yeah, the I basically have this tape delay that gives it a sort of analog sound that I lay over every track. But besides that, I'm throwing on just a compressor, an adaptive limiter, um, and using the compressor to boost the volume and lower the threshold
Yeah,
and things like that. I think it's all pretty basic stuff. Like I mean, for me, it's an improvement. I'm not mastering it like a studio level or anything, but it's
right.
uh, it's it's pretty much the same for every track. I have like 3 or 4 tools that I'm throwing onto every track that I kind of have my settings dialed in for.
The tape delay as a constant part of your chain is pretty interesting to me. That's
Yeah,
a very like present and aggressive choice in a mastering situation.
yeah.
But for
So
this genre and this sound, like the dark sound you go for, I can totally see that just working out and adding some feel. Is it a pretty short, subtle tape delay?
so it's interesting. It's not. It's I looked up a tutorial to find out how to do this, like this exact sound I was looking for, but
Yeah,
it's to emulate kind of the warble of a cassette tape
yeah.
or a track.
Just to get it like a little bit degraded in there.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's not a huge amount. It's fairly subtle, I think. It's just enough to add some character and some
nice.
yeah, yeah. But I don't go too aggressive on that.
Right. What's the limiter that you use? That's one I haven't found one that I'm like sold on or committed to yet.
Again, it's just inbox stuff for project
Oh, true. Yeah,
for
you did
Logic.
mention that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It's what every the compressors, the limiters, the tape delay. It all comes with Logic. So I'm just trying to maximize those tools.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the newest album has a very clean professional sound to it. So I
Thank you.
think yeah, no, for sure. I see mastering as just adding like the professional coding on top of a good song.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
feels
don't want it
there.
to at all fundamentally change, the song in any way. I just want it to, I want it to be loud enough so people aren't turning up their phone to max volume so that they can hear on their
Yeah,
headphones.
yeah.
But yeah,
Have you used an exciter in your mastering chain?
I think I have messed around with exciters. I don't think it's currently in my chain though. I don't have an
I see
exciter in my
that.
chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been part of the learning curve for me. One of the ones that I'm really trying to train my ear on when to use it and not use it, that sort of thing.
And is that for getting more volume? Is that what you use it for, or is that just to clean up?
My understanding is it's kind of like I think the term would be harmonic saturation.
Okay.
You make the sound a little more present at certain frequencies.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, like maybe you would excite some of the upper end to get the like a ride cymbal shining a little more.
Okay.
Taking that with a grain of salt because I don't know what I'm talking about.
Is that something you try to lay onto like individual instruments then, or is it, or do you lay it over the entire track?
I throw it on the master of the track on
Gotcha.
the final one. I have like a visual one where you can like look at an EQ curve as you do it, and
okay.
I don't know. I just trust my ears, and maybe it's good, maybe it's not.
Right, and that's all you can go on, right? Ultimately, and that's, I feel like, that's a lot of the time how I'm working. I'm like, okay, so I'm twisting this knob and it's kind of sounding better, so I think I'm doing it right.
Absolutely, yeah. Luckily, it's a very forgiving genre. I mean, even any amount of mastering is somewhat stepping beyond the norm, or at least the minimum.
Right, yeah, and I think that kind of falls back into my punk rock theory. And even like, I mean, it's rooted, it's rooted in black metal, which is like, hey, can we get a shitty $30 amp from a garage sale and turn it up to the max? And,
right. Yeah.
So I think that it's kind of in the water when it comes to Dungeon Synth. But I mean, the cool thing about Dungeon Synth is you don't have to stick to one thing. Like, you have comfy synth, and you have clean, melodic, beautiful, shimmery synth, and you've got weird, experimental synths. And I like that it can be a lot of different things. It's kind of progressive in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think it takes a very kind, open community to make that happen. Like,
that's another great thing.
Don't see a lot of that's technically not the right sound. Just a lot of welcoming people, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I try to avoid gatekeepers in most respects. So,
sure. So one other angle I want to dive into with Endless, I noticed that in the notes you play you're one of the two names for the album art, and you weren't in the past. It looks like other person Jordan, they did the Observer stuff, but now you're in the mix. What's going on there? What did you do? What did you contribute?
I might not have credited myself as artwork, but I have been involved in the artwork throughout the whole project. Jordan is my brother. He is Scablad on Instagram, SKABLADD. He does all my album art. And then basically my involvement is I drop his art into Procreate. I do all the coloring. And then I've done all the lettering and font layout. I designed the logo as well, the Grimfather logo.
I see. So you're a little more in the graphic design end of the cover.
Yeah, kind of graphic design, post editing, throwing in coloring and finding fonts and trying to make it look as cool as his art. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. Yeah. There's this purple swirl over some stuff and like a big yellow color in the background. How much of that is there when you get it, and how much of it do you add?
So since he works in charcoal, it's all black, white, gray. So
wow.
Yeah. So all my pieces are black and white, and then I throw the color on afterwards, or his pieces.
That's neat. Yeah. The charcoal, anything like that, a less common medium, you don't see it all the time. So makes the cover really, really pop, really stand out.
Yeah, and his progress has been insane because he didn't start working with charcoal until Procession. So he's been doing this for like a little over a year.
That was August of 2020, right?
Exactly, yeah. So his progress, especially for this, for Procession, we're doing a cassette release of Procession through Vicious Mockery. He did brand new art for that, and it's some of his best work. It looks incredible. I love it.
Nice. That was something else I have in my notes. So Procession, the first release coming out through Vicious Mockery. Mm-hmm. How'd that happen? What made you dig back into some of your older work and decide to put that out now?
Well, it was Sam who presented the idea to me. He was like, "Hey, somebody mentioned wanting Procession on cassette," and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." It was originally supposed to come out when Endless came out, but I had just finished writing Endless, and I was like, I'd rather have this come out closer
Yeah.
to the digital release. So Procession got pushed back.
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
Observer also came out through Vicious Mockery, right?
It did as well. Yeah, that was the first one. Sam once again. I owe a lot to Sam. He and I were him and our ORCUS and I were coming up around the same time there, and I listened to his first album and I was like, damn, this is good. And then he kind of we were kind of talking a little bit, and then eventually he reached out and was like, hey, I've got this label, do you want to do this cassette? And I was like, oh yeah, what's your label? And he was like, Vicious Mockery. And I was like, oh shit, I follow you guys already. Yeah, let's do it. So yeah,
Sam's awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
So I noticed, so you have all of your releases through Vicious Mockery, but then on your Bandcamp you have links to buy the Endless tapes if they want it in the US, but they're ones that were made by Vicious Mockery.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't really know anything about the distribution side of things. So how does that happen? Did Sam send you tapes to sell on your own?
Exactly, yeah. So basically part of the contract, I guess, I sign is that I get a certain number of tapes. So they sell their amount, and then I think Realm and Ritual gets a certain amount to distribute, and then artist copies get sent to the artist. I think for Endless I got either 8 or 10 tapes. I think it was 10. But yeah, I gave away a bunch of tapes to like close family and friends, and then I just sold the remainder of them through my Bandcamp. But yeah, they're technically Vicious Mockery produced them.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So the ones on your Bandcamp, those are the artist copies, not the Realm and Ritual copies?
Yeah, they're the artist copies, and those are sold out now, I think.
I see. Yeah, that's an interesting way to do it.
It's nice because I get a portion of the sales that Vicious Mockery does, but then all the sales of the artist copy, go right to the artist, and that's it's nice.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of logistics that totally aren't common knowledge, and there's no handbook to explain it.
Right. Well, you have a cassette coming out, right? You just announced yours.
I do. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think I don't know when I'll release this, but for right now, it's like this weekend it comes out. So super excited.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So another thing that I was kind of interested in. So I know that you create your own kind of world here, but you have a lot of I guess you could say like imagery and common themes from fantasy worlds within the song titles and everything. Could you talk about specifically what influences your world creation? Like if there's any existing works that you tend to draw upon, or is it just kind of the general fantasy soup that's floating around from everything that's been out so far?
No, I definitely have some specific inspirations, but fantasy has been a part of my life for a long time. When I was a kid, I discovered Tolkien, and funny enough, I discovered him through video games. Video games was kind of my first love. I remember being like 5 years old and playing, Sonic on the Genesis. But I remember one day I found this demo for this game. It was a Lord of the Rings game on the PC. And I remember going to my mom and being like, oh, hey, I found this cool game. And she was like, that's based on books, right? And I basically found out about Lord of the Rings through video games.
That's wild.
So I after that, I read that completely. I kind of dived headfirst into fantasy. And recently I've kind of been going through a fantasy renaissance of my own. And that's kind of why Dungeon Synth hit me at just the right moment, because I was already knee deep into a deep love with the Dark Souls series of games. And
buddy.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've seen seen your song titles. We'll talk about that. We've got to talk about that. Yeah. But my buddy sent me the artist Hole Dweller. He sent this album, and he was like, "Oh, you got to check this out." And I did. And I should shout out my buddy Kyle. He huge supporter of me. He got me into Dungeon Synth. I owe him a lot as well. But he sent me that Hole Dweller, and I fell in love with it, dude. I was like, these song titles are so long. This like weird old, it sounds like it's from a 70s like animated movie. I'm just like, this is the coolest shit I've ever heard. And I from there I was like, I'm listening to Questmaster, I'm listening to Depressive Silence, I'm listening to
Nice.
Thangarodrim, just loving exploring like every aspect of it. But literarily, besides Tolkien, I'm deep into I was really into H.P. Lovecraft, and his
Oh, cool.
particular flavor of horror. All personality traits aside from him, because he's generally a piece of shit.
Sure,
But
yeah.
his fiction really resonated with me. So I think, and
Yeah.
that's where the weird fiction aspect of Grimfather comes in. I
Totally adds
think,
up. I can see that.
yeah, but him, I've read guys like Thomas Ligotti, and a lot of modern fiction writers right now, like Joe Abercrombie and Mark Lawrence. They're like, just there's this grim, dark, like fantasy horror genre that really scratches all my itches, which again ties back to Dark Souls, and again Berserk as well, because that is very grim,
Yeah.
very dark, and Berserk is a huge inspiration for Dark Souls as well.
Right. I was itching to say that. I
Yeah,
know Miyazaki's mentioned that as a big fundamental inspiration.
absolutely. Like everything from like creature design to like armor design,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Even
direct
the big
references.
great sword, I think
Yo,
that's a direct
oh
reference.
yeah, yeah. You can do like all the guts builds, which is the main character from Berserk. Like you can do a
Oh,
full guts
nice.
build in Dark Souls. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that which I'm guilty of doing. Actually,
Yeah.
I was especially during the writing of this split. I was like trying to make every aspect of my life about Berserk.
Just
So
submerge yourself
yeah,
into
it's
it.
basically, yeah, I would drown
That's
myself in
good.
Berserk. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it worked out. I had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, besides reading the manga, I was playing Dark Souls, playing what was the other game? It was Dragon's Dogma. That was also
Ah,
inspired by Berserk. But so yeah, just really getting into it, really
nice.
nerding out
It's
on it.
funny every time a guest mentions like fantasy or like a video game being an influence. I'm kind of like, was it Dark Souls? Was it Dark Souls? I'm just waiting for them to say it, and
uh,
it's never that. It's always something else.
yeah, and I mean, I
And
draw.
I've even had one guest finish the show and was like, "Oh, by the way, I love those Dark Souls games." Like, oh, why didn't you say that?
We got it on the show. We got it on the show, dude.
We got
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
it was the thing at the back of my mind the whole time when I was like, wait a minute, Augur of Darkness. Wait a minute, I recognize
Yeah.
I recognize
Yeah.
these dialogue samples.
Yeah, absolutely. Just ripped from the intro.
Yeah.
Something I'm constantly a little anxious about in the back of my head.
Oh, really? No, I think it works totally fine. It's just enough. But
Just
I
enough.
I
Nice.
think I'm glad that are you a Dark Souls 2 stan then?
Oh yeah, I mean
Oh
I love them all. They're
yeah,
all beautiful.
same
They're all
same.
works of art.
But
Yeah,
I've
two is so good. It gets me. Oh, it's just like absorbs you. It's so nice.
Yeah, I love so much about two. But I've spent so much time with all of them. I think I'm due for a
Right.
revisit of two. But yeah,
Yeah.
that is just that holistically, that series aesthetically, the mood, the atmosphere, the design ethos that goes behind every creature.
Yeah.
It's so much my shit that it's embarrassing almost. And it was like a joke actually that Sam brought up when he mentioned the Berserk thing. He was like, how come everybody who likes Dark Souls loves Berserk? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like a joke at this point.
Yeah.
But
He's selling me on it. I gotta check it out.
yeah, I would highly recommend it, man. If
Yeah.
the things you like about Dark Souls are all there,
Yeah.
it's just more narrative and character driven. It's not,
Yeah.
very opaque and mysterious the way, I mean, there's mysterious aspects to it, but it's not super
Sure. Yeah.
mysterious the way Dark Souls is.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like even just on a conceptual level, the Souls games resonate with me. As silly as that sounds, like
No, I fully get that,
I
dude. It's so
see. Yeah.
philosophical.
I see the things that appeal to me in music and literature, and even just the way I approach hobbies, coming from the same just the nature of the Souls games to not give you something. You have to go out and get it yourself. You have to
Right.
seize it.
You have to earn it a little
That's
bit.
so appealing to me.
Oh
Yeah,
my,
you have to earn it. You have to want it.
is that where Seize It With Thine Own Hands comes from?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
dude,
that's a
that rules.
quote from Ludlith
Hell
from Dark
yeah.
Souls 3.
Okay, I missed that
This
one.
throat sees it with thine own hands.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's really
It's a
cool.
bit of a deep cut. You gotta kill him and then talk to him again. You'll say it. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. I should, you know what? I was going through all the tracks, like searching them on Google to find out exactly which games they were from. And
Oh, nice.
you threw in a Forgotten Realms reference on there, though, right? With Candlekeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like we were saying earlier, your progression through albums resonated with me, where I was much less conceptually focused with
Sure.
that album. It was
Yeah.
like, here's some songs remind me of Dark Souls, and then my friends and I were playing Candlekeep D&D, and hey, let's throw that in. I don't know. Wayfair is another D&D reference.
Okay, yeah, that one I didn't
just
search because I was like, that's a little more general. I don't know if I could
Yeah,
find what
that's hard to
Wayfair is.
get something from.
Yeah.
Last night we were the pals and I were playing some D&D, and I was going through all the Grimfather releases actually.
Oh wow.
You know, you always want some Dungeon Synth playing in the background
Hell
for it.
Yeah,
is
you're
that
not the
something
first
that
person.
influences you?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Yeah, or like any sort of like tabletop stuff, does that come into your wheelhouse?
Probably subconsciously to a degree. I never
Okay.
super got into tabletop. I love Dungeons and Dragons through things like Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights, and
Okay, yeah, that adds up.
yeah, but it's something I've always wanted to do. I've never really found a group. I have actually, I've DM'd one Dungeons and Dragons game with just like my brother and my wife and my son. We kind of did a game together,
Nice.
and it was a lot of fun. But it's so much work to like put together a campaign.
Oh yeah, it's
or
a
anything.
ton of work.
Yeah. So
honestly, like my friend group and I have been kind of off it lately, just because it's so much to pick up and put together, organize all of that.
It's a real commitment, especially when you're trying to juggle as many hobbies as I am, where I'm like, I'm reading, I'm listening to music, I'm playing video games, I'm like,
right, all the staples, nothing to give up there.
Yeah, exactly. Spending time with my family. It's hard to fit it in, but it's something I would really like to do at some point. I've only ever DM'd games because I don't know anybody else who would do it. So I've never actually gotten to play it proper.
You've got the world building mindset. So
yeah.
I can see that being a good place for you. But yeah, it's a different experience. It's fun to just sit back and play too.
Yeah. I got to play that. I don't know, you see that Vicious Mockery Wizards Brew RPG that they did?
Sam and I were talking about it last night.
Yeah, I gotta play that at some point. It's like a single page.
Interested.
Yeah, it's a single.
Yeah, he was saying like the rules. It's very exhaustion is a big part of it.
Yeah, it's got like a fatigue system.
I'm interested. Fatigue. Yeah, I think that's what he was saying.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, very interested there.
Yeah.
So what's up next for Grimfather after this split? What do you have planned out?
Well,
if you have anything planned out.
Well, besides it'll be the Procession release. Again, that doesn't have a date yet, and actually, I don't think the split doesn't have a date yet exactly either. I think we were looking at May, April potentially. But after that, I've kind of got some lower conceptual ideas kind of kicking around in the back of my head. So
yeah,
I might try working on that at some point. The thing is, there's a lot of artists who can who do they've got like a new track or new set of tracks like every month or something, and it's so baffling to me.
Tough.
Like I cannot at all process how they can be so prolific.
Right.
So with me, my creative cycle is a lot of like on and off. Like I need to just step away from it for a long time.
For sure.
So I'm like, I'm taking time off. I'm going to just read, and I'm just going to, play games. I'm just going to consume the stuff I want to consume.
And let all that kind of swirl around your head.
Yeah.
Start to influence things.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a new concept, but that's what I found has mostly worked for me. And I want I like the kind of antiquated idea of, the big album release or, the release being something, unique to itself, maybe rare, kind of leave people wanting more, hopefully.
Sure.
I'm not saying
plenty
it's
of
always
different mindsets for it.
Yeah.
I kind of fall into the same category there, same mindset.
Yeah.
So
sorry, go ahead.
Is there anything non-Grimfather coming up? Do you have any other music stuff stewing around?
I haven't had any time to really focus on anything else. I haven't felt creative in that way. So no, nothing on the horizon, but Yeah, I'll probably just be sticking with Grimfather because it's been really satisfying. It's because being in the community is really cool because there's not so many nice people, but it's like I'm just constantly like seeing cool stuff. So
Yeah.
it's keeping me really like satiated as far as
Nice.
creatively. And working with my brother has been super cool, super satisfying as well. Like he's super into it. So I'll kind of give him an idea and then he'll, make the magic happen basically. And, throw 30 hours into a piece and I'll just have this
Oh man.
awesome thing I can hang on my wall.
Yeah, that's gotta feel good.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, so I'm at the bottom of my notes here. I feel like that was great. That was everything I could have wanted. We're pretty psyched for it.
Okay,
Is
cool.
there anything else you're looking to get out there, or just anything you want to plug?
Oh gosh, I mean, no, not particularly. I don't think so. Just follow me on Instagram and check out the cool artists I recommend.
Nice. And you're Grimfather Music?
Yeah,
Is
Grimfather.
that it on Instagram?
Yeah, that's
all
yeah,
one
that's
word.
correct. That's it.
Nice. And just Grimfather on Bandcamp, grimfather.bandcamp.com.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other places to find you?
No, that's gonna be it.
No. Nice. Well, that's all we need. That's lovely. All right. Well, thanks so much for hopping on. Thanks so much for bringing up Dark Souls.
Oh, dude, yeah. God, I'm trying to think of what kind of trivia can I go off on? Can we end this episode with on Dark Souls?
Yeah,
here we go. What was your first Dark Souls?
Oh, it was 1.
It was 1.
I did
you got on the ground floor.
Classic of like 1 into 3. And then dive into like Bloodborne and 2 and all of that.
Yeah, I had a weird one because I got Demon Souls on the PS3 and
wow,
absolutely bounced off it. Had no idea what was happening, so I like sold that game back to GameStop or something. But later, Bloodborne comes out on PS4 and I play that and I absolutely loved it. And then worked
back. That was the gateway.
Yeah, and I worked backwards from there. And now like Dark Souls 1 is like my favorite of all of them.
Nice.
But yeah.
Bloodborne to me taught me to not play with the shield, and I feel like that changed the way I approach all of them. It made me like I don't know, just learn things more thoroughly and get into challenge runs, things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely much faster.
Yeah.
Less methodical. You got to be. It's a little more reactionary, I feel like. But
just you got to be fast.
That again leans into the weird fiction horror stuff, Bloodborne. So
stuff. I can absolutely see that being swirling around in the influences.
Yeah, definitely a flavor I'm always looking for. So that definitely satiated that.
That is, I feel like there's off the top of my head, I can't think of too much in the scene Lovecraftian. I know Rog has a Lovecraft album.
Yeah,
but. I don't know. I feel like you would see that pop up more, and maybe it does, and I'm just out of touch. But
yeah, it might be less apparent. Like I feel like as much as it's lingering there, actually, you know what? It probably is more apparent in my stuff than I'm aware because I think I've had somebody actually say about my writing that it seems Lovecraftian. So it's probably front and center in my brain.
Yeah.
All
right, well, let's head out here. Thanks again. Thanks so much for hopping on.
Thank you, Trev.
Music, filling the beans.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.
All right, man. You too. Bye.
Sup, friends? Wasn't Chris just the best there? That was such a good conversation. I feel so fortunate to have gotten a chance to get into the weeds with Chris about how all that Grimfather music gets made and how that very elaborate wild world that Chris is coming up with came to be. And also, I'm just kind of beaming at having a chance to finally talk a little Dark Souls with the guests. That's the dream. That's what I've been gunning for. So it's nice to have it. I feel like in general we've been on an absolute hot streak with the guests lately. That this one felt just as comfortable and as interesting as it could get. And it's nice to have a little back and forth there with getting Chris on right after having Sam of ORCUS and Vicious Mockery on the previous episode. lot of fun, a lot of good cast content, I think. So yeah, be sure to check out grimfather.bandcamp.com. Keep on the lookout for the upcoming split with ORCUS that Grimfather has coming up. And I believe you can check out Grimfather Music on Instagram, all one word, Grimfather Music. Yeah, got a bit of Trev news to cover before I head out. Maybe first and foremost, something exciting. The Seize It With Thine Own Hands tapes are out now. You can grab them at uncomfyrecords.bandcamp.com/merch. I think they're $9 plus shipping. The tapes have a new master and include a bit of additional artwork, some stuff on the tape, some art on the J card. They're super, super cool. I couldn't be happier. In additional news, unfortunately, this is going to be the last podcast episode for a little while. Nothing too crazy, but I'm about to travel a bit, visit some family, see some people I haven't seen in a while. And yeah, I'll be gone about 3 weeks and won't be able to record anything on the road. So I will be leaving you folks, taking a little hiatus. I had planned to stock up on some episodes, but things have been a little loaded in my work life as a scientist and in my personal life as a person. Just a lot of stuff going on. So I'm just going to take this as a small break, and then I'll dive right back into the interviews. When I'm back, I'll be rejuvenated and invigorated, and it will be very exciting, I promise. Well worth the wait. Yeah, in the meantime, you can stream the previous episodes on YouTube or just wherever you normally get your podcast, places like Apple Podcast or Spotify. This is episode 15, which is kind of quite a lot for a podcast. If you haven't listened to the others, maybe check them out. I'm sure with 14 other episodes, there's someone you might be interested in. Or even if you listen to someone that you've never heard before, all the guests have been awesome and insightful, and I'm sure there's something to get out of checking them out. Kind of on the same train of thought, while I still have some Castbitten shirts available, after December 18th, I'm going to be out of here, so I won't be able to ship them. So maybe don't buy them. Don't buy them until after then, unless you're just cool with waiting a couple weeks. Yeah, now a little good news before I head out. The album is all done. The cover art's looking fantastic. The songs are nice. Pretty soon I'm going to put out one final single, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, I've had plenty of talking here. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Enjoy the hiatus. Enjoy your time in the winter. If there's holidays, enjoy those. Take care. Get out of here.